What is going on, everybody? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm excited to recap the Giants' Week 4 victory over NFC rival in the Chicago Bears, final score of 20-12. And the Giants improved to 3-1 on the 2022 campaign. I was very excited. I was actually in attendance for this game. I finally got to meet my Big Blue Avenue co-host, Sam Cardona, the girl who talks sports in person. That was an awesome experience. Shout out, Sam. Appreciate you coming. Also met up with Hank. The three of us were there with, all of our significant others, just having a good time, watching some Giants football, and the Giants pull out a nice W. It wasn't a pretty game, but it was definitely something worth watching, and I had a lot of fun personally. But before I dive into that, folks, make sure to go check us out on all of our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate all the support we've gotten. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more Big Blue Avenue notifications. So I'll leave that scrolling up there for just a second. So this is the 5th straight year that the Giants have played the Bears, and it's crazy because neither of these football teams were good. The guest we had on our show last Thursday, she was very optimistic about the Bears in this game, or should I say just more pessimistic about the Giants, and with good reason. The Giants really didn't prove that they beat anybody good until this week. Now the Titans are 2-2. That's the team the Giants beat. Carolina, not great, but we beat them. And now the Chicago Bears. Again, first time since the 1930s, the Giants have played the Bears 5 years straight. The MVP of this game, offensively for the Giants, was none other than Saquon Barkley. Again, outstanding play. He had a long run of 29 yards. He's been really improved in pass protection, 31 carries for 146 yards, had 162 total yards of offense. And it's safe to say Saquon is back. We're talking about old form Saquon. This guy has, back to a game changer. He leads the NFL in rushing through 4 weeks, 463 yards. The Giants as a team lead the league in rushing, and that's behind a below average offensive line. The Giants average 192.5 yards a game on the ground. That leads the NFL. In this game specifically last week against Chicago, the Giants outrushed the Bears 262-149. Going into the game, the Bears were the number one rushing team in all of football. Now, granted, the Bears were without their star running back in David Montgomery, and the Giants took away the running game from Chicago. Maybe not took it away, but they contained Khalil Herbert. Guy had 19 carries for only 77 yards, and that is due to Wink's Funhouse. The Giants stuffed the run. Dexter Lawrence was a beast. 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 5+ QB pressures. He was outstanding. 3 quarterback hits and a tackle in the backfield. The dude is a mammoth. He's really showed out so far this season for Big Blue, especially with a defense that is without Leonard Williams right now. But back to the offense for a minute. The one concern of this game was the injuries. Quarterback Daniel Jones left with an ankle injury in the third quarter, and then backup Tyrod Taylor comes in, goes 1 for 3 with a pick to Eddie Jackson, and he also leaves with a concussion. So at that point, they're running Wildcat with Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones did re-enter the game. Give him a lot of credit for that. But now the Giants have both QBs hurt. Daniel Jones out, Tyrod Taylor out. The Giants are still able to find a way to get the win. And now when it comes to Daniel Jones in this game, a lot of people are going to look at the stat sheet, and before they even scratch the surface in their argument, they're going to bash this performance. There was nothing wrong with this performance for Daniel Jones. The Giants didn't need to throw the ball more than 13 times for him specifically. Jones finished 8 of 13 for 71 yards. He was sacked once. 139 total yards of offense if you include the 68 rushing yards on just 6 carries, by the way. He had a key block for a first down run by Saquon Barkley and a real gritty performance. Again, it's not like the Giants are 1-3 or 0-4. They're 3-1. And part of that's because Daniel Jones is helping this team win football games, especially on those bootlegs that were run by Mike Kafka and the Giants offense. Those weren't designed runs. It was an RPO. What that is Jones has the option to pass the ball off the bootleg. Chicago was giving him wide open space. What do you want Daniel Jones to do? Run straight forward into the end zone. He's one of the best running QBs in the NFL, and he's proven that. 6 rushes for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, returning after the sprained ankle as well is something I really love to see. He really wants this team to win. And you could argue, well, he only threw for 71 passing yards. But what people fail to realize is, how about that drop that Darius Slayton had? That would have been a 60-yard touchdown, right? So you tack on another 60-plus yards if Slayton makes that catch. And you look at the numbers, well, why aren't the Giants throwing the ball a whole lot? Well, the 2 touchdowns were potentially going to be pass plays if somebody was open, and the limited impact of the wide receivers. Sterling Shepard's out for the year. Tony and Robinson both unavailable. Kenny Golladay left with a knee injury, not that he would have been a factor anyway. So you're relying on David Sills, Richie James, Daniel Bellinger. There's nobody to throw to in this offense. So I don't see why people are complaining. The Giants aren't throwing as much because the Giants are limited at wide receiver. They're not limited at the QB position, at least not right now. Daniel Jones did say he feels optimistic. He's considered day-to-day. I think the Giants are going to proceed with precaution. His status is undetermined for Green Bay this week. And Tyrod Taylor's likely out. So right now, either Daniel Jones or Davis Webb will start the game. Davis Webb on the practice squad was really good in preseason. And, in this game, Daniel Jones was finding his tight ends. Daniel Bellinger, 3 catches, 23 yards. Tanner Hudson had 1 catch for 18 yards. Tanner Hudson was literally signed 5 days before cutdown day. And the Giants have been able to make an impact with him. Richie James had a costly fumble on a punt return. That hurt the Giants. Offensively, the Giants are still struggling, but they scored their first touchdown of the first half the entire season, thanks to Daniel Jones. So that's one thing to know. So Sexy Dexy with the 2 sacks as we transition over to the defensive side of the ball. Dexter Lawrence was fantastic, played a big part in why Khalil Herbert only had 77 yards on 19 carries. I mentioned his stat line. Giants as a unit had 6 sacks on defense. Justin Fields was 11 of 22 for 174 yards. And then Tay Crowder has been a nice player, as of late in Wink's Funhouse. He didn't have a great week. He good. He led the team with 11 tackles, had 2 QB hits, had a sack. That's what you need. Jalen Smith, elevated from the practice squad, played a little bit for Big Blue last year. He made an impact with 7 tackles, 1 in the backfield. Jahad Ward, who played with Wink in Baltimore, 4 tackles and his first sack as a Giant. Also, let's not forget about Azeez Ojulari. Also had a sack. Hopefully he's okay. He left with an injury as well, with a calf injury. Fabian Moreau, former Falcons cornerback who couldn't stick on a roster, had 2 passes defended. Aaron Robinson left the game early with a knee injury. Very unfortunate, but it seemed like the secondary improved when Fabian Moreau left the game. Not to mention Julian Love also left the game early with an injury. Did the Giants give up big plays? Yeah. Were they targeted Adoree Jackson? Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on. Darnell Mooney had a 56-yard catch. He had 94 yards receiving. He had a good game. Giants secondary wasn't great, but the defense as a whole was. We look at this statistic here. Wink's Funhouse continues to crush it on third down. They have the second best third down defense in the entire NFL. Opponents only have a 29.4% conversion rate. And 3 of the Bears' 5 third down conversions this past week were on scrambles from quarterback Justin Fields. Also, the Giants have the second best red zone defense. Who would have known, right? The defense forced 3 Chicago turnovers this week. Giants committed 2 themselves. But again, defensively, the Giants were the better football team. Gano was 2 for 3 kicking field goals. And just to go over the injuries here, we have Daniel Jones left with the ankle, Tyrod Taylor with the concussion. On the offensive line, there were a couple injuries as well. Mark Lewinsky left with an ankle injury, but did come back in the game later. Evan Neal left with a neck injury. Eventually, I believe he came back in. We did see some of Devery Hamilton on Sunday. I mentioned Aaron Robinson, Kenny Golladay with a knee. We know the situation with Tony and Wandale. Defensive lineman Henry Mondeau, who's been the Leonard Williams replacement on the roster, that is, left with an ankle injury. He's likely out this week. Azeez Ojulari nursing his calf, and Julian Love left with a concussion. So all signs of concern there for the Giants. 2 captains left Sunday's game with an injury, Jones and Love specifically, and the receiving room continues to get thinner and thinner. So, final thoughts. Giants looked good as a football team. Hard-earned win. Joe Schoen is the first GM in Giants history to start off his tenure 3-1. Very impressive. Brian Daboll, very well coached game. The Giants did not activate Austin Calitro this week, which I found interesting. They clearly want upgrades at linebacker, so Jalen Smith, good job. Tay Crowder did good. No complaints with this defense. Speaking of the defense, as I transition into next segment here, the Giants hosted former safety Landon Collins on Monday for a visit. Landon Collins played with the Giants from 2015 to 2018. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, also made an All-Pro team. A lot of Giants fans remember this guy. I think he could potentially be a solid addition to this defense, especially after that Julian Love concussion. If he can't go this week, you're looking at Dane Belton. You're looking at Xavier McKinney. Who's after those guys, right? Nobody. So at the end of the day, Landon Collins is a guy that could potentially make an impact. He's played with this team before. Not that he would have any teammates left that he really played with. But, one thing I think that's important to note is that he's a great box safety. He can play the hybrid, safety / linebacker role. He can help out at that second and potentially third level. And I think personally he'd be a good fit in this wing scheme. He spent the last 3 years with the Washington football team, now known as the Commanders. So I'd love Landon Collins back. I'd welcome him with open arms if it's at the right price. Bigger news, a move that was already made. We stick with the defense. The Giants signed veteran linebacker A.J. Klein to their practice squad. He spent time with the Buffalo Bills. He was a Dave Gettleman draft pick, I believe a 5th rounder back with the Carolina Panthers in 2013. Over 9 seasons, Klein has 80 starts. He spent the last 2 seasons with the Buffalo Bills. You guessed it. Played under, Giants current head coach Brian Daboll. Not directly under, as Daboll was the offensive coordinator there, but, he knows Daboll. He knows Joe Schoen. Klein was signed to the Giants practice squad. This fills the void that Jalen Smith left after being promoted to the active roster. I expect Klein to be elevated quickly. I don't know if they're going to release Austin Calitro or not. I do think Klein and Smith are both significant upgrades over Austin Calitro. I'm excited to see what A.J. Klein can do. What we do know about Klein is that he's a good blitzer. He's not a guy who can drop back into coverage. He's a guy who can stop the run and rush the QB. He's an outside linebacker. I believe he played, remember Giants linebacker Chase Blackburn? I believe he played with him for a year in Carolina. So that'll be interesting. Sticking with linebackers, former Giants linebacker Blake Martinez finally signs with the team. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. Surprise, surprise, because that's where Patrick Graham is now as the defensive coordinator. Martinez was still being paid by the Giants because he had a guaranteed, I believe it's $1.25 million that he's guaranteed with the Giants this season, regardless of what he does with Vegas. That's the linebacker room. Blake is now on another team. The Giants signed Jalen Smith. Played well on Sunday. They bring in A.J. Klein, trying to improve that linebacker room. And while there's nobody special in that position group, it's definitely better than it was a couple of weeks ago. Other news, people can think what they want about this. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., who used to play for the Giants, he's currently a free agent, visited the Giants facility on Monday. He was visiting Sterling Shepard, who's started his recovery from a torn ACL that he suffered in the Week 3 game. He did not meet with Joe Schoen or Brian Daboll. Odell is recovering from a torn ACL himself that he suffered in last year's Super Bowl with the Rams. Odell's going to be out till at least week 10 or week 11. And if he's likely to sign with the team, it'll be the Los Angeles Rams. I don't see a reunion coming with the Giants, although the Giants could use the help at wide receiver for sure. You know, he could potentially be a good fit under this scheme. But me personally, I don't want him back on the Giants, even though, you know, a lot of those guys from that previous regime and offense aren't around anymore. I don't think it would be the best fit. Other news, I mean, the Giants continue to get hurt. Aaron Robinson placed on injured reserve. He's going to miss at least the next 4 weeks with a knee injury. He only played 10 snaps in Sunday's game against the Bears. However, cornerback Rodarius Williams is eligible to be activated this week after missing the first 4 weeks of the season with a knee injury himself. So Rodarius Williams, I believe is a 6th-round draft pick in 2021, could potentially help this room out. Right now, the Giants have starting-wise Adoree Jackson and Fabian Moreau. The only corners on the roster that are healthy really are Darnay Holmes, who's a slot guy, Cordell Flott, and we've seen how that experiment's gone so far. I don't know if he's ready yet. And then you have technically Justin Lane and Nick McLeod, who have been both battling injuries. The final news that's been going on this week so far. The New York Giants have worked out multiple quarterbacks. You see a familiar name here on this banner, and I'm sure you're shaking your head and asking yourself why. The Giants work out quarterbacks Jake Fromm, A.J. McCarron, among others. Brian Lewerke, also included in that group, a 2021 preseason QB for Big Blue. Jake Fromm did get drafted by the Buffalo Bills back in 2019. This is a guy who could potentially make a practice squad spot if the Giants were to bring him back in. They also worked out A.J. McCarron, who has a lot more experience than Fromm. McCarron was on the Bills in 2018. So it'll be interesting to see which QB they sign to their practice squad, with Davis Webb likely to be elevated this week due to the concussion of Tyrod Taylor. Regardless if Daniel Jones plays or not this week, Davis Webb will be active on Sunday in London against the Green Bay Packers. But folks, that's going to do it for the Week 4 weekly recap. And of course, a lot of news and transactions going on over the last couple of days due to injuries that were suffered in the Week 4 game against the Chicago Bears. The home team continues to dominate that series between the Giants and the Bears. Folks, but first, I sign off. We'd like to shout out our proud sponsor, BetUS. That's America's #1 favorite sportsbook. You can sign up with our promo code below there if you like to sports bet at Join125. Again, that is Join125. Get a 125% sign-up bonus when you bet on the go, anywhere, anytime with this code. That is BetUS, where the game begins. Folks, appreciate you all watching this video here. I'm so happy the Giants are 3-1. There's a lot of work to be done on all sides of the football. And if you want to watch more content of me, of Hank, of Sam, as we dive into this 2022 New York Giants squad, go check us out on our YouTube channel there at Big Blue Avenue. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at Big Blue Avenue as well. Sometimes we like to go on IG Live too, but our Facebook, YouTube live streams are Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Hank and Sam will be running the ship for that this week. I'll try to get a film review out tomorrow. I'm not so sure how it's going to work with my work schedule, but apologies for getting this out late. But the Week 4 recap video, Giants are 3-1. I'm happy. I hope you are too. Giants are back to their winning ways. And that, by the way, I know the next few weeks are tough. So we will see, and we will talk about that when we get to our Week 5 preview. But folks, without further ado, let's go Big Blue.